Welcome to Active Adoptions Podcast. I'm your host, Mackenzie Love, and today we have Heidi.
Hello.
And we have Jessica here.
Hello. Awkward.
Everyone always is like, do you want me to say hi? Like, sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.
Hi, Jessica. She was just hired by Active Love, and she's now part of our family.
Yep.
Lucky
Welcome to the
duck.
family.
Yes. And you're a birth coordinator. Is that correct?
Yes.
Cool. We're so glad that you're here. I know. We got to settle down. Dakota and Briggs are going to hate us at this point.
Oh, I should blow into the microphone.
You're good.
So
it's like blowing out a candle.
you are also a birth mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we talked a little bit about this last night, super last minute. But do you want to start the year before
Sure.
you got pregnant?
Yeah.
And just go from there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I graduated from high school. I was born and raised in Southern California, and I came up to Utah. And my senior year in high school, I had an eating disorder, which kind of set the trajectory for the next couple of years of my life.
Yeah.
So I come up to Utah, I go to BYU. It wasn't really my scene. So I transferred to UVU, and that was kind of more of my people, I guess. And I was really depressed. I was really struggling because the bulimia changes your hormones. And so I unfortunately had a suicide attempt and had to be taken away in an ambulance. And so my parents thought, okay, well, now we need to bring you home because clearly you're not thriving by yourself. And so I went back to California, and I just was still feeling just really crappy about myself.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to this guy. He was 10 years older than me. So I'm 18. He's 28. And he was just like, oh, you're so beautiful. And it's like, I loved hearing that. Like, cause I was just needing that, like from other people.
Yeah.
And obviously I was looking for it in all the wrong places, but I didn't care. And like, I'm not kidding you. I think the first time I slept with him, I got pregnant.
Yeah.
And it's like this weird thing. It's like, you know how pregnancy works, but then you're like, oh, it's never going to happen to me or whatever it is. It was just that's not going to happen.
Me. I was like, there's no way I'm going to get pregnant.
No.
Like I'm not that person.
You're like, I mean, sex, like that's how you get pregnant, but like not all the time.
Right.
But you can choose when you get pregnant, right? So, but this is kind of the funny part. So my friend who introduced me to him, she was like kind of dating his brother. And she calls me at work one day and she's like, I need you to come with me to the grocery store. Like, I think I'm pregnant and I want you to take a pregnancy test with me. And I was like,
I'm sorry. We
That's
might
like
have the exact
deja
same
vu.
stories.
are you serious?
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Keep going. I'm really interested in this now. Yeah. This is going to be good.
We go to the grocery store and like the person checking us out was like, oh, are you guys going to take this together? And we were like, yeah. And then she was like, oh, and it was like so awkward. So she like scans it and we go back to her house, which it literally was a hole in the wall because it's Santa Barbara. It's so expensive.
Oh,
and it's like, I'm not kidding you. It was like, it looked like a walk-in closet that was like made into 2 rooms. Yeah. So I go in first. I don't know why I decided that it was a good idea for me to do it first. So I go in first. I'm not even kidding you. Before I was like done peeing on the stick, it was like lighting up like the 4th of July, like hot pink.
Oh my gosh.
And I think I knew before I even took the test because I'd already missed my period.
Yeah.
And I was just like hoping that I wasn't pregnant. But I'm like, I knew I was.
Right.
And so I was like, crap. I'm like, what am I going to tell? I mean, because I was raised very religiously. So I'm like, what am I going to tell my parents? They're going to be so mad. They're going to kick me out, all these things. And so, and she wasn't pregnant. I was like, of course. Is that the same thing?
Same exact thing. Same exact thing.
Didn't you go first because you thought you weren't?
I didn't think I was. I literally peed, put the cap on, sat it on the toilet, and she went in. I didn't even look at it. She went in. She took a pregnancy test, and she's like, it's negative. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, hours later, I go to the bathroom again, and I pick up the pregnancy test on the back of the toilet, and I was like, Brienne? I was like, are you sure? Like, are you not pregnant? Like,
because it says positive.
And then all of a sudden, she's like, that's not mine. And I was like, what? So we went to the gas station, rated all of the pregnancy tests.
Like, I have to take 17 of them.
Yeah, no, seriously. 1 is not enough.
It's like, you're pregnant.
You're pregnant.
Like, sorry.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to defer from you, but we have very similar stories.
Kind of hilarious.
Right? Isn't that
Just
crazy?
to know that I wasn't the only person taking pregnancy tests with friends.
That's not normal? I thought that was normal.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, girls do everything like in pairs. So, I mean, why not take pregnancy tests? Like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she wasn't pregnant and I was like, oh no. And of course, like I go to tell him and he's like, is it mine? And I'm like, I'm 18. Like I literally have never slept with anybody.
Yeah.
And like, you're the only person. So yeah.
Yeah.
It is yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have known, like, he had 2 kids with his ex-girlfriend who also lived next door to him. So I should have, red flags, right? But, of course,
you
wasn't.
were 18.
Yeah, I was 18. You don't care about those red flags.
No. And so, and the sad part is his brother when he heard Jessica's pregnant, he thought it was his ex-girlfriend, whose also name was Jessica. So I was like, clearly he wasn't only sleeping with me. He was sleeping with her too and probably other people.
Yes.
Oh my god.
And here I am just thinking he's like,
he loves you.
Yeah.
Oh, trust me.
That's sad.
Which, you're 18. Like, you just believe the things.
Oh yeah.
So I go home, I tell my parents, and then I disappeared for 3 days because I was just so sad that I disappointed them. Like my dad, when I told him, he didn't say anything to me. He got up and he left. He was going to a basketball game at UCSB and he just left.
Yeah.
Which, knowing my dad, I think he was just trying to collect his thoughts because he never is he's like, once you say something, you can't take it back.
Right.
So he wanted to make sure that he, handled this in a way that was not terrible.
Yeah.
So, fast forward, my sister and my mom did some research because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I actually had a appointment for an abortion because I was so terrified.
Yeah.
And I called the birth father and I'm like, hey, can you, I have this appointment. Can you come pick me up after this? He's like, I got to work. And I was like, and it snapped me out of it. I was like, what are you doing? You don't believe, I don't judge other people if that's their plan, but I'm like, this is not something that I was ever for.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, I guess we're doing this. I just don't know what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah.
So my mom and my sister did some research. They found out that in Utah, it was once the birth mother signs, then the birth father's rights are terminated.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, because in California, you have to have both parents sign.
Mm-hmm.
And so they flew me up here. And I didn't even really, I was kind of I don't know, whatever, adoption. Sure. I don't care. I don't want this baby, but I do. I was very detached.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so I lived in a substitute home because we did it through LDS Family Services. And so they had families, I believe, that were also waiting to adopt, take in these birth mothers. They had.
Is that not weird?
Well, they had, I think it was an option. They were if
Okay.
you're willing to, it wasn't you sign up and then you're automatically, it was if you want to, you can have a birth mother live with you, which I'm that's painful.
Yeah, I was going to say
and those are
lot.
waiting families. Well, because I know of Shannon's mother-in-law, she took in Beth.
Yeah.
So she took in birth moms, but she had adopted, but she wasn't in the process of adopting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were in the process.
Yeah, that would be
That's so
very hard.
interesting.
And
Were you matched with that family?
No, because with the way that LDS Family Services worked is you couldn't, you could know first names and stuff, but you couldn't know last names. You couldn't know. So I couldn't have placed with them because I knew too much about them. I knew where they lived. I kind of infiltrated their lives.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of my pregnancy, I think I was 8 months pregnant, she miscarried. She was pregnant and miscarried. And I was I can't stay here anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Not because she said that to me, but I'm like, she needs to grieve.
Yeah.
So luckily I had
nice
a cousin who lived in Draper because I was just in Midvale. And so my mom talked to her and was like, hey, can she just come live with you for the last 4 to 6 weeks of the pregnancy? Because this is this is not what they had in mind. Right.
Yeah.
So I go and live with her. And when I was picking the families, it's because my son is half Black. And so I was it was really important to me to have him be with a biracial family.
Yeah.
And so the family that I had chosen, they were on what LDS Family Services called was a soft hold. So a birth mother had already kind of chosen them, but not for sure. She was just deciding between a couple people. Anyways, that fell through. And so, because I was these are his parents. I know 100% that this is who he's supposed to be with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so when that fell through, I was so excited.
Yeah.
And so, and I had these amazing experiences with the adoptive family. So I really wanted to pick his name because I'm you're placing them and it's just kind of a piece that he can take with him,
Yeah.
And So I was talking to my cousin and I was like, oh, what about this? And all of a sudden, like this name like popped out of my mouth. It was Jacob. And I was like, that's his name. That is his name 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So I call the birth family or the adoptive family and I'm like, hey, I really wanted to pick his name. And side note, so like the adoptive father is from Nigeria. And in Nigerian culture, you name the firstborn son after the husband, after the father.
Okay.
And so he was like really adamant about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I call and I'm like, hey, this is the name I've chosen. They just start sobbing. And I was like, oh no, they have a bad, like, you have a name and you're like, oh, I can't, no, we can't name him that. Like I dated a guy that, or I did, I dated a girl, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, what? Like, are you mad about that?
Yeah.
And she was like, you have no idea. She's like, we have been like praying about this. She's like, and every time we go somewhere, she's like, the name Jacob is like, that's his name. And she's like, and by you saying that his name is Jacob, it was like, that solidified.
Yeah, I got the chills too, yeah.
That solidified that is his name.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that is so cool.
Yeah.
And so, fast forward 9 months, we go in, I'm having the baby. It was like the day after September 11th. So all the news was like, it was the year anniversary of September 11th.
Yeah.
So it was like all the things, the Twin Towers,
Yeah.
So I'm in there with my sisters. I had a really great support system. I mean, obviously my parents were not thrilled, but like I had a really great support system.
That's
so
good.
my sisters were in the room with me. And apparently I go really quickly because like all of a sudden my sister checked me because I was like, I'm feeling like weird.
Yeah.
His head was out. And she's like, we need like somebody. She was like, thought she was gonna have to deliver the baby. And they come in and they're like, crap.
Yeah.
And they just like pull him out. Like I didn't even have to push. They just like, he just like came out.
Oh my gosh,
and I was like,
nice.
oh my, okay, that's cool. Like this was the easiest thing ever. Like, okay.
I could do this.
That is so
I just
funny.
do over and over again. I also, in high school, I had a dream that I got pregnant and my mom, as punishment, like wouldn't let me get an epidural. So when I was pregnant with Jake, I was like, oh my gosh, she's not going to let me get an epidural. She's going to like punish me. And she was like, I would never do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, Mom, I know. It's just like, I knew the disappointment. And so I just was like,
You're replacing it.
I know that you're not that person.
Yeah.
Right.
Because she's like, why would I? And I'm like, I know. So I had an epidural, just so you know.
That's
Which was
good.
great. And so, but it was weird because another experience that was really cool. So as I was having him,
Mm-hmm.
the adoptive dad said, he's like, I could feel his presence so strongly that I looked in the back seat to see if he was in the car seat that they had already bought for him.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my gosh.
And so it just like things like that just kept happening. And I just
Yeah.
felt more at ease
Mhm.
about the whole process. Cause I'm like, he is supposed to be with this family. Like
Yeah.
there is not one single doubt in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I had him and I actually wanted to be with him for like a day or two in the hospital so I could just like love on him and kind of, all the snuggles that you get with newborns in the hospital.
Yeah.
And then we ended up doing the placement at the agency because I'm like, and it was weird because I took him home with me
Yeah.
to like get some stuff, but then we went to the agency. And I remember they like took him and I just started sobbing. And I was like, wait, I didn't get to say goodbye. I'm like, please bring him back.
Oh.
Because I was like so devastated that I was like, oh my gosh, like this is real. Like I don't get, and I was like, Mom, can I keep him? She's like, he's not a puppy. Like
Yeah.
you can't do this, And I'm like, oh, so they brought him back into me. It was really cute. They brought him back in and I just like, sorry.
No, it's okay.
I just like sat there and I just like looked at him and I just was like, I love you so much. I'm just like, I just want all the best things for you. And, just, I knew he was going to a good place, so I was like, and I just had to relinquish him into their hands. And like, I just remember, I just like going home. I just was like, I felt so depleted and you're just like, you're leaking. You're lactating.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be sitting in the bath and like, so red cabbage leaf, they say like break up, milk. And so I was like sitting in the bath. I'd have these red cabbage leaves on. I'd be leaking. I just like sobbing in the tub, like, cause you feel so empty, like you carried. And I'm like, it's weird. Cause I'm like, I had no connection with him during the whole pregnancy, 0. And as soon as he was born and then he left, and I'm like, I feel like this huge hole in my life.
Yeah.
And, so yeah. So then I fast forward, I get married and like my husband and I had been married for like maybe a month and I get this like message on Facebook from his mom, like from the adoptive mom,
Oh
like,
my
hey, is this the
gosh.
same Jessica?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, oh my gosh, it's so great to hear from you. And then she kind of ghosted me. So I was like, okay, clearly it might be uncomfortable still for her.
Yeah.
Right. And then a couple years go by, my friend's getting married in Nashville. And I told my husband, I'm like, I think we should go. Like, I feel like we should go.
Yeah.
And we had some really good family friends that lived in our same neighborhood that had moved out to Georgia, like maybe a year before this. Anyways, his family and their family were in the same like neighborhood area.
What?
So I like reached out. I was like, hey, like we're going to be at the Atlanta area because we flew into Atlanta and we were going to drive to Nashville and like make a weekend trip of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're going to be in Atlanta. Like, is he interested in meeting? And if not, I get it. But also I'd love to meet him. He was 15 at the time.
Oh, I'm so glad you reached out.
Yeah.
And it took a couple days. So I was like, maybe they're not going to respond. Anyways, it turns out like they responded. He wanted to meet and they came over to my friend's house.
Oh my god.
And that was like our first meeting. And it was so funny because I'm like, he is my brother.
Really?
Like his mannerisms.
Oh, really?
Like
He's
some
just
of his
like
facial expressions.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also I'm like, it's weirdly comforting
Yeah.
to see this. And like, he's so much of my family.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then we've just like been in contact since then. And he came out to Utah for a little bit, but like, you know, wasn't really a scene. So he went back to Georgia and he's actually now at the Southern Virginia U.
Okay, yeah.
And he's like thriving and it's so great. And we talk all the time. And I called him on his birthday, or I texted him on his birthday because I'm like, I don't want to bug him. It was his 21st birthday. And he calls me and he's like, I just felt like I needed to call you and talk to you. And you know, so we talked for like 15 minutes. And anyways, yeah, it's just, I remember my mom saying like after I'd placed him, like, one day he's going to find you, like, or one day you guys will meet and you guys like, you'll have a relationship. Like, don't worry, this isn't the end. And of course, like right after I was like, that seems so long.
Yeah.
Like I'm never going to be whole again. Also growing up in a predominantly religious family, I'm like, nobody's ever going to want me. So you have all these, like you have all these emotions with the adoption, right?
Yeah.
That you've lost this baby, but then also like you have all these emotions tied up into like, I'm going to be alone forever. I'm never going to have a family of my own. This could have been my only shot. And what if this is my only shot?
Yeah.
And what if like I get married and we can't have kids? Like all these things are rushing through my mind. But I just think that he is with the right family. And I like when all was said and done, it was the right move, but it was the hardest thing that I've ever done in my entire life. And I don't think I'd wish that upon my worst enemy because it just, it feels like a death.
Yeah.
It feels like there was a death in the family and it's so hard to cope with that. And especially if you don't have a support system. Like I honestly don't know how people do it when they don't have support systems.
Yeah.
And it just like, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was that. And here we are and I'm 40.
So with it being like a death and the hardest thing, would you do it again? Knowing the outcome and how he was, how he's been doing?
Yes. I would 100% made the same choice.
Okay. So you don't regret your choice?
No, I did for the first like year. I was really angry at my parents.
Yeah.
I was really angry at the birth father because he even like he came back and was like, when are we going to start a family of our own? And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Oh,
what?
my gosh.
Yeah.
What did you just say to me?
So did you start dating him again once?
No. So when I came back, he wanted to see pictures and like all this stuff. So like he and I met in a park because my mom's like, I'm going to set a timer.
Yeah.
You're meeting in a public place. Like I am not trusting you. I'm like, I get it though. But also mom, like I don't want anybody touching me ever again. Like I'm afraid if I get looked at.
Me. That was my biggest fear after. I was like, this is so inappropriate and I'm going to probably edit this out. But there were guys that I was so attracted to and I would totally have sex with, but I would look at them and be like, what if I were to get pregnant? Sorry. Like I just can't. Yeah. I want this with you. I just can't. And I'm 100%. So sorry. You know what I mean? But I'm like, there's things like that happen and I totally understand that feeling. It's like, I don't want anyone looking at me, touching me. It was hard for me to date for the first. And then of course, Ryan comes swooping in. I married the birth father. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I love how you're like, whatever.
Just kidding. I love you, Ryan. I do love Ryan. I love him with everything I have. I really do. He's the best husband and dad. Like I'm so glad I forced him to marry me. Like it's good. We're good. But I'm just saying, I totally understand that. So,
you're just like, you're like, I don't want.
I promise, Mom, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah. But so we met and we talked, and that's what he would say. He'd be like, oh, he has my mom's hands or my dad's hands or something. Like I'm like, you suck.
Yeah.
But then also I'm like, I have to like, just recently, okay? So like for the last whatever years, 21 years, I've been like, so like still I'm like, you suck.
Yeah.
Like you're a terrible, like he's had like 5 or 6 more kids with other people,
bet. Yeah.
you know? And my sister and I were talking one day and I'm like, I can't really be mad at him, right? I'm like, I have to look at the way he was raised.
Right.
And I'm judging him on the way I was raised.
Right.
So I'm like looking at him being like, look, you were raised by a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
You and your 3 brothers, like you're all from different dads.
Mm-hmm.
You were raised in Compton. Not that I'm saying Compton is a bad place, but I'm like the demographic, like just all the things like add up. And I'm like, I was judging you on like the way I was raised and how like I had 5 siblings and the way my dad treated people and all these things. I'm like, that's super unfair.
Yeah.
And I also don't think that it's healthy for me to be mad at you about this, like all these years later,
because
I'm like, that's affecting me.
That's the only person that affects.
Like he ghosted me, like he literally. But the funny part is he also like would tell friends after the fact, because I had a friend's friend who ended up dating like somebody in their friend group.
Yeah,
he would like carry pictures around of Jacob in his wallet, like baby pictures, and talk to all of his friends about him and be like, Jessica's the best person ever. I'm like, because I disappeared.
Yeah.
I placed the baby. You never have to see me again. You don't have to give me money.
Exactly.
Like, of course I'm your favorite person. Like, I'm a lot of people's favorite people when you have 5 baby mamas.
Exactly.
I'm like, and I'm the only one that like you don't have to see or deal with. Yeah, of course I'm your favorite. You're welcome.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
So I'm just like, whatever. But yeah, so I'm like, I kind of recently just had to let that go. I'm like, it wasn't his fault. It was just the way he was raised. And I get that we all get to make our own choices. And he could have chosen to do it differently.
Yeah.
But he didn't. And it's all that he knew. And I'm like, I get that that's, that's just how it is. Like my current husband, like he had no direction, no real job, no real path. Like when we got married, like, and, so I'm like, it was, you sometimes have to. He's helped me. He's made me be a better person.
How old were you when you ended up getting married?
I was 25.
Okay.
So I had a little bit, like, after I placed, I kind of had this, like, wild streak where I was I didn't care about.
She was the same.
Yeah. You just
I took a photography job, traveled the country, and just did whatever I wanted.
That was amazing, though.
Yeah. It was so fun.
I was, like, in a whole phase, but, like.
Oh, no, I was doing whole shit the whole time. I just was not in Utah doing it.
She was everywhere else.
I was just everywhere else doing it.
She had fun.
I had a great time.
Which is good. Yeah.
But, that year, even though I was going through, like, that hoe phase, I also was like, you know what? I also grew up in a very, prominent religion. And for me to just be like, who am I without that?
Yeah.
Like, who am I? Like, I had to start from the very bottom and grow. And I was like, I can start fresh now. I want to show my birth son that he gave me a second chance.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And I did. And then I got pregnant a year later again. But it's okay.
You're like, it's fine.
It's fine.
I know. I told it. Well, so when he called me on his birthday, it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
So after he went back to Atlanta, he was like, he just wanted to date someone so bad. Like he'd never really had a girlfriend. Yeah. So he met someone, they like moved in together after like 2 months. And I was like, oh
no.
Like, I don't know what, but like figure it out.
Yeah.
And it was not good. Like they broke up and it was not good. And so when we were talking on his birthday, I was like, I gotta admit though. Well, first I was like, I just want you to know, I'm like, I'm really bad with emotions because it makes me feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I've been screwed over by people when I've been vulnerable. So I have a really hard time sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, but I love you and I'm so proud of you. Like you've done so many wonderful things and like you have turned into such a great man. And like, and I said, also, I was really mad at you though for a hot minute there because you were being stupid. And he kind of laughed and he's like, I know. He's like, I felt that too. And I was like, but I'm really glad you got your act together in a shorter amount of time than I did. I'm like, it took you like 6 years. I'm like, it took you like a year. Yeah. So like, way to go. Because I said, I placed you for adoption so you could have a better life and you were shitting on it. And so I was like, could you not? And he's just like chuckling. He's like, I know. He's like, so He's like, yeah, I pulled it together. And I'm like, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for not following in my footsteps. Cause that was real scary for a minute.
Yeah.
Cause he like texted me one day. He's like, guess what? I was like, if you got her pregnant,
Yeah.
I'm going to be so mad. And he's like, I'm going to college. And I was like,
Oh,
yay. And he's like, what'd you think I was going to say? I was like, I don't know. And I told my husband, I was like, dodged a bullet.
Yeah. Seriously. Oh my gosh. How cute.
So, but it's kind of funny. We have very similar stories and I love it.
Yeah.
My middle name is actually Jessica too.
Is it?
It
Oh my
is.
gosh. Mine's Sabrina.
That's cute.
I don't love it.
Mine's Jennifer, so I don't know.
Really?
Everyone calls me Jennifer.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
You kind of look like a Jennifer. I could see that.
Yeah, it's like, it's funny. I'm like, that's fine. I won't answer to it because like, I don't know who you're talking to, but you can call me it.
I don't understand.
I also went to cosmetology school.
Where?
I went to Aveda
Okay, like in Salt Lake?
in Provo.
Oh, in Provo.
They had, I don't know if it's even open anymore. We were the first class to ever go there. And I'm pretty sure it shut down shortly after.
What
And then
year?
they moved. It was in 2010.
Okay.
And then they moved to a different location. And I think it had all new management and stuff. But
Oh.
I think it's still there.
Did you graduate?
No.
Oh, that's okay.
No.
Do you still do
school
you do
dropped
hair?
out. I do. But I do my family's hair. I did right after. And then it kind of got old for me. So, but the adoptive mom, like my birth son's mom, she does hair as well. And she has a salon in her house.
Oh,
so.
seriously? Where do they live? Do they live here?
In Orem, yeah.
Oh.
Mhm.
Do you have like, do you see him all the time? Do you think, okay, so was yours, who did you go through and then how, like, was it open, semi-open, or completely closed? I know it's changed a lot in the last.
So I was going to go through LDS services. I went there and it just did not feel right for me. I was like, this is just not.
She could not find her family there.
I couldn't. It's so sad. I looked through so many profiles and I was like, this just doesn't feel right. And, I wanted to keep. Like, that was what I wanted to do. And Ryan was like, we need to look at other options because we're not compatible.
Jokes on you.
I know. I just love chuckling at that afterwards.
And now, how many years later?
I know. And how many kids later? But he was like, let's just go. We went to like a convention on adoption, went to a panel, listened to people talk. And I walked out of there and I was like, hell no. I'm like, I'm not placing my son for adoption. I'm sorry. Like that right there for me was like, there's just too much that goes into it. I don't have the mental capacity. I was so young and so immature that I was like just thinking about myself at that point.
Yeah.
And then I just had a really spiritual experience and I got down on my hands and knees and I was like, I need you to tell me what to do. Yeah. Like, I need someone to help me in this decision because I did feel so alone. And I had a very spiritual experience. And I decided to move forward with adoption after that. And I posted on Facebook.
I love it.
In 2009, posted on Facebook. And we got like 500 messages of people that wanted to adopt. And like, no lie, we actually went through them the other day and it was so crazy. All of the different connections
you still
and everything.
Have them?
I still have them. They're on my Facebook.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh my gosh. Oh.
So, but this family kept popping up like multiple times within those messages. And I was like, that name sounds so familiar. So I looked her up on Insta or on Facebook and I was like, oh my gosh, she's gorgeous. I was like, I love her. Right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden my mom's like, Annette? She's like, that they were on our co-ed softball team all growing up.
You're like,
and I was like, what? I was like, okay, that's why her name sounds so familiar to me. So then she, I reached out to him. I'm like, multiple people have said your name. I don't know if you guys are even looking to adopt because they weren't with an agency or anything. Mm-hmm. And she's like, yes, like, let's go to dinner. So we went to dinner and it was great. Me and Ryan sat there. Ryan and I sat there. Is it me and Ryan or Ryan and I?
Ryan and I.
Ryan and I. It just sounds really funny.
You can say however you want it. Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. So Ryan and I, we went to dinner and
no one's going to grammar check you.
Yeah. No. I don't know. You never know. I hate
Nowadays you don't.
Media.
You don't. Yeah, you don't.
And we sat there, we talked to him and they were everything we wanted. Like we wanted him to play sports because we both grew up playing sports. She did hair. I went to cosmetology school. Like it all just like meshed so well. And so we sat in the car and we both looked at each other and we both just started bawling. That's like probably the first time I saw Ryan cry in the 2 years I've known him. And we both were like, that's the family. And so that next morning I called her and I was like, I hate to do this over the phone. She's like, just tell me. Like,
she's like, what is it?
What is it?
Rip the Band-Aid
And I was
off.
like, I want a place with you guys. And we both just cried on the phone together. And so we did a private adoption just with an attorney. And I wanted to close adoption because I wanted to just be done with Ryan. And me and Ryan were like on and off all the time. And it was just kind of a jumbled mess. And so I just wanted to be done. I wanted to close that chapter of my life and move on. And the adoptive mom came to me and she's like, I really want you to look at open adoption. I know it's kind of a new thing, but because we live in the same state, because, you know, I know your family, we grew up together. She's like, I really like you to just think about it. And so she wrote out like tons of pros and cons for me. And I was like, you know what, let's do an open adoption. That sounds great. Fast forward, I gave birth. I had my mom, my sister, my aunt, like everyone was there to support me. I had a big support group as well. And it was like the hardest day. I signed papers in the hospital. And it was so hard for me that I couldn't even go see him after that. I just said, I'm sorry, I can't even hand him off to her. Like, it's too hard. It's too emotional for me. But I had a nurse come in like in the middle of my meltdown. And she was actually Annette's friend. So the adopted mom's friend. But she came into me and she handed me a blue teddy bear. And she said, I lost a child in this hospital and no mother should ever leave empty-handed. So she gave me this bear and like a really, really sweet letter just saying, you know, how much she loved me and how much, you know, like this is going to be a huge blessing in my life. And honestly, it has been. And his family is amazing. And his life is amazing. Like, he gets to do so many things. I have 4 kids. And I was like, sorry, guys. We can't do everything Colin does. Like, I love you. But, you know, Colin and his brother are 7 years apart. He gets to do whatever he wants. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But I was actually putting my daughter to bed a few nights ago. And she looked at me. I thought she was asleep. I, like, get up to walk out. Turn off her light. She sits up and she goes, hey, Mom. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, I really miss Colin. And I was like, I do too, honey. And I was like, anytime you want to talk about Colin, you know we can talk about him. And I'm an open book because they're full siblings. And so she's like, but, you know, I was thinking about it today and I'm so glad you did what you did because now I get to have Annette in my life. And Annette is one of my best friends and that's his mom. And I just like sat there and I was like trying not to cry in front of her. And I was like, you're so like, I just love you. I was like, thank you for that perspective because it's
hard sometimes.
Yeah. And I go and I sit in my room and I actually text Annette. I'm like, you're not going to believe what Maya just said. Like, she loves you so much. Yeah. And so, you know, we were both going back and forth, just like crying and like texting each other, just how grateful we are for each other. And honestly, that's what I love so much about adoption is that it has given me more family. It's given my son more family. It's given my kids more family. And life sucks. It can be really shitty sometimes, but it's beautiful in so many ways. And if you look at the positive, and I hate to be like the toxic positivity, but if you just look at the positive, you're going to see the positive. And that's what I've had to do on those days that are extremely hard for me because it's like this. Some days I'm like, it's fine, I'm fine. And then we like all went to ice cream and he sat with me and he like gave me a hug and I like kissed him on the cheek. And I was like, oh, I just kissed him on the cheek for the first time. Like, you know, like those little things that just happen that you're like, oh my gosh, like I gave birth to this kid and he's not with me. And then you start thinking about like all the things you missed out on. And like, and like, is he going to hate me when he's a few years older? Is this going to be like, have I answered all of his questions? Does he feel loved by me? Because I'm kind of like you. It's really hard for me to be vulnerable. And so it's like this podcast, I think, has helped me in that, where I just feel like it's okay because other people, even though they're not being vulnerable, they're feeling the same thing as well. Yeah. And it's okay.
Well, and everyone grieves, I think, in very different ways. For a lot of years, I went out and I was like getting tattoos because I'd rather feel the physical pain than the emotional pain because the emotional pain was too painful.
Yeah.
And I mean, even talk like Jacob has questions for me, like occasionally, like he'll just send me a text or like when he was living in UVU, we had him up for his birthday and I could tell like he wanted to spend time with just me. Yeah. But because I have 3 other boys, he was almost getting a little irritated that like he couldn't just like be alone and like ask me these questions. And I do have times like that too, where I think back like, well, what if I would have kept him? And what if like, how would his life have been different? But I'm like, he can play the piano. He can play the guitar. He can play like,
that's
all
my
these,
birth sign too.
all these things that I'm like, you would not have had that with me because
No.
unfortunately, like I probably wouldn't have had a place to live. Like my parents were very firm about that. I don't think they would have really kicked me out, but it just, you know, like I wouldn't have gone to beauty school. I wouldn't have met my husband. I wouldn't have, and like, he's great. Like he even gets more emotional about my birth son sometimes than I do. Like he's like, he thinks of him as his own son. Like, and my boys, the same thing as your daughter. Like my boys would be like, Mom, when are we going to see Jacob again? Like we really miss him because we've always talked about Jacob and we've always talked about that he plays a role in our lives and they don't totally understand like, wait, so dad's not his dad?
Yeah.
And
So
I'm like,
how
well,
did that
so
work?
like, but like, how did, like, I'm like, well, he doesn't look like your dad at all. But, you know, my husband is from Georgia. Like, it's weird. Like, he's from Georgia in the same, like, kind of area. Like, just kind of all the, like, the spiritual experiences that kind of came along with it. And, and also, like, before adoption, like, I didn't know about adoption.
Same.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you just, I mean,
It
it's
wasn't
not
out
something
there.
you, like, Google either.
Yeah.
Like, you're thinking, I'm going to get pregnant. I'm going to be, you know, but then you, like, learn about this and you're like, how beautiful is this? Like, when his mom was struggling with him, she texted me like, hey, like, this is what's going on. Like, what can we do? And I said, well, just from my perspective, like, this is how I felt when my mom was doing some of those same things. And I was trying to figure my life out. And I'm like, so now it's like, he has the two moms in a way, and he has more family and he has more, and my mom sends him what she calls the Bobby Bowden scholarship. That's my mom's name. So she sends money to him, like for school. And like when he was at UVU, she like was like, I'll pay for his classes, like his semesters, because she does it for all the grandkids. And so she's like,
so sweet.
You know, he's a grandkid, even though he's not a grandkid.
Yeah.
So she includes him in those things and sends him some birthday cards, and which I love. I'm like, like, you can never have, it takes a village to raise
totally does.
kids. And and I'm like, how can it be a bad thing when so many people love this one person and are rooting for this one person?
Right.
Yeah.
No,
You know?
I totally agree.
Well, and that's kind of why we're doing the podcast for the community, because we want to create an adoption community with all stories and try to get out there so people know that isn't a bad thing. I mean, it starts with and mostly ends with love, right? Continues.
Well, and it's all, and it's messy. But like,
it can be,
but life is so messy, and it's like you said, it's so beautiful. Like the beauty comes within the mess, and I don't think we could appreciate the beauty if there was no mess.
Yeah,
right.
You know, and so it's like it's made me who I am, which is like made you who you are.
Oh yeah.
And like I think about, I'm like, I wouldn't change one thing about who I am.
No.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. And I don't think I would be, I mean, I obviously wouldn't even be in this room.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
None of us would.
because you're at risk of changing everything with one decision.
With one decision. And people ask me all the time because, you know, me and Ryan are still together. We get that question constantly. Well, do you ever regret placing him? And I was like, no, because if I would have kept Colin and me and Ryan tried to work out what we were dealing with at the time, we had to take a pause. We had to go through something big that broke us for us to grow from that. And I think I had to go through that. Ryan had to go through that for us to be where we are now. So
Totally.
that's my answer to that as well.
Yeah.
So
I love hearing other people's stories and just how it's affected and just like where their journey has taken them.
Yeah.
Because I love hearing the stories.
I know, me too.
Yeah. I'm grateful for birth moms. I wouldn't have children.
Yeah. Well, we love you.
I know.
I wouldn't have my 4 children if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you.
You're so sweet.
No, it's true. I wouldn't have any. I mean, to take that away, I don't want to start crying now too, though.
We're all gonna cry. It's okay. What,
But I mean,
what's
but that's the thing is that
it's not crying.
when, you know, I got married young. So you say 18. I got married at 18. And we tried for 5 years and couldn't have children, and just always being asked that. And adoption wasn't a foreign thing for me because my mother had adopted my siblings.
Yeah.
So it was an easy transition for us to make. My husband's on his side, it wasn't.
Yeah.
No one had ever had to adopt up until that point, and no one really discussed it.
Yeah.
So I always think it's funny because I'm like, we threw it his family. We're okay, we're going to adopt, but not only are we adopting, the baby's addicted to drugs, and she's Black. So there you have it.
Yeah.
We're going to throw it all at you.
Lay it all out here on the table.
We're like, here you go. So, you know, take it all in. But
Yeah.
when they brought her to us our first two were they were born in Texas and brought over on the airplane and the two girls are biological siblings. They're 10 and a half months apart.
Okay.
So, but I will never forget it. And Christopher, my third, we actually saw him born, which was the closest to giving birth I could ever get. So we got to see him born and stuff. So, but yes, wonderful gifts.
And I love that there's so many different ways being a mom.
Oh yes.
Because like even I have a sister who doesn't have kids though, but she treats the nieces and nephews like they're her own. Like and so it's just fun to watch moms in general. And we all need to be on the same page. Like we're all in this together. Like when people are mom shaming, I was like, let's just jump on
stop.
together.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like the way I run my life is not the way you're gonna run your life.
Exactly.
Like, you know,
it doesn't work.
No.
I mean, we're all different people.
But see,
they gotta watch.
My house is the house that all the kids come to. So I never really have to worry about
house.
that. I do have a party house. But I want it that way. I grew up in the Air Force and I moved so much that my house was never like a home.
You never felt settled.
Exactly. So to me, I'm like, this is the longest I've ever lived in a house.
In one place. Yeah.
And so I'm like, I want this to be a safe place for everyone. And we do. We have like the neighborhood kids are my kids. Since they were young. Yeah. Like we moved in, my kids were, my oldest was 4, I think. So from 4 on, all of her friends, all of my son's friends, everyone's just
it's a party
hanging
house.
out. It is.
And she has a lot of toys too, though.
Way too many toys. I got to get rid of them.
I mean, she has like the blow up slide, the big ones and everything.
Well, see, we live in a townhouse. We can't pull that stuff out. I'm like, go to the park. Like,
go to the park.
Because we have a park like in the middle of our community. So it's gated. And so I'm like, just like run around.
Yeah, and go play.
Together. And plus, I'm like, you only have 3 months to do that. So do that quickly before this winter comes and we're all trapped together.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Every winter, I'm like, what do we do? Like, what do we do in the house? Like, how do we survive every winter? I don't know.
We just built a loft. Like,
Did you?
Because we had this like vaulted ceiling, like empty space. And I'm like, we just built it so that with another couch and we're going to put a TV. So I'm like, now we have like downstairs.
So you have
and then
space.
Like I can have like, if I need to be alone or like go watch Netflix, it doesn't have to be in our bedroom. Like I can go and or watch the snowfall from the windows. I'm like, something.
Pretty.
And I can put on the fireplace on Netflix.
Yeah, right.
We don't have a fireplace.
I do that too.
I feel cozy. I'm going to put on my fireplace and just like, snuggle.
I love that so much.
Do you have 2 TVs? One for the fireplace
and then one to watch?
I should have like one below the mantle and the Netflix and then like put the fireplace Netflix.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Seriously, it was good. And I love that we have
I'm not saying my story was good. I'm just saying like the experience was good. Let me clarify.
Your story is very good. And this podcast is going to be very good as well. I just love how similar our stories are, too. I know. It's funny.
It's crazy, the similarities, though. With the majority of the people that have been on this podcast.
It would have been so much better, though, if we were the friends taking the pregnancy test together and then we'd both be pregnant, That
would have been nice. Then we would have had each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have each other now.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
good. Do you have any advice for potential birth moms that are about to place their child for adoption, whether it's during your journey, like your pregnancy, afterwards, now being 21 years later? Is there any advice or any comments that you would like to make?
I think the most important thing that I had was a support system, right? And I understand that a lot of women don't have that. I get that. So my advice, the best advice that my midwife actually gave to me when I was pregnant with my third is you need to find a group of about 5 to 10 people who are your people. It doesn't need to be family, but it needs to be a support system that says, after I place this baby, I'm going to need you to physically come get me out of bed and take me on walks.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to be a sounding board. But for one person, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why she said get 5 to 10 people, because you can rotate through those people and you can create your own community and support system, because you're going to need that, especially right after, because you're going to feel alone. You're going to feel empty. And if you don't have a supportive family, that's going to make it 1,000 times worse, or supportive friends.
Right.
So find your people.
Yeah.
Whatever that means
advice
for you, or where you have to find it, find your people, because that is what's going to keep you. Honestly, it could keep you alive. It could keep you sane.
Yeah.
It could keep you just somebody to check in on you every day. Because my mom physically pulled me out of bed every day, made me go on walks with her every single day for about 6 months. Then she was like, get a job. You need to be busy. You need to, like, I understand you're grieving, but also I don't think it's healthy for you to sit inside thinking about it all the time.
Yeah.
Because like you said earlier, like your brain it's a very powerful thing.
Oh,
and
yes.
I know when I'm not busy, I start having self-doubt. I start talking negatively about myself, my physical appearance, my emotional appearance, me as a mom, me as a sister, me as a daughter. So you need to keep yourself busy, and you need to get a support system, find a hobby, something.
Yeah.
And it will carry you through. It's not going to change it. It's not going to make you necessarily feel better, but it will help you emotionally.
Yes. It'll get you to that next step.
Yes. Whatever that next step looks like.
Exactly. No, that's great advice.
That is really good advice.
Yeah. I'm glad you had your mom there for you.
Oh my gosh. I like, as much as she drives me crazy, like she seriously, she would sit there while I sobbed. She would, she bound me with ace bandages. She she just kept me literally alive. Like I didn't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
And she kept me alive. And so I think that, and also talk to your doctor, get on medication. Like,
yeah, there's no shame in
there's
that.
no shame in getting on medication. There's no shame in postpartum, even when you don't have that baby still.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
Those are all experiences that you have to go through. You're going to have to deal with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So like, just get the help you need, because as much as you want to be the person who fixes yourself, you can't sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And there's a reason there's doctors. There's a reason there's therapists. There's a reason there's just people that you can talk to, because you need to.
Yeah.
Reach out to them.
And sometimes you might even say to someone like, look, if you don't hear from me a couple of days, please reach out to me, because it's really hard for me to reach out to you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I know, like, in dark times, that's when I like go in as a hermit. Like, since I started this podcast, I've had to really look into myself and deal with things that I thought I had moved past. And it has brought me to really dark places, and it's brought me to really great high places. And I think, I'm not near as funny as I used to be, so I'm really sad about that. But I do feel like this healing process has helped me be a better mom. It's helped me be a better wife. I'm more conscious of what I'm saying to the people around me and how I react. There's like little changes that I've made in my life where I feel like, okay, I can breathe again. And it's going to happen again in like a month or two.
Yeah.
And it's a process for sure. I'm not like completely healed ever. But I do feel like this has been a good step for me. So I'm grateful for this job. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for Active Love. And so my personal goal in all of this is to educate, because I feel like education is so important on everything, not just adoption, but everything in life. Like, educate yourself, get different perspectives, try to understand people more, because we need to be a human collective. We don't need to be, like you said, mom shaming. We don't need to mom shame. No one's perfect. No one is. We have to be there for each other, and we have to support each other. And the only way we can do that is by healing through our trauma and dealing with it head on, even when it's really, really hard to do.
Because hurt people hurt people.
Exactly.
That's so true.
So,
yep.
That's true.
friendships or even family. Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
haven't had to
especially
do that with
family.
my family, but I know
Yeah.
that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it's true. Well, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
No.
It was fun.
Yeah.